Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Autocar Professional Dialogues. Today we have a very special panel discussion on revolutionizing mobility, the future of a hyperconnected world. For this conversation, we are very delighted to have Ms. Lata Chembakalam, Vice President and Head of Technical Center India Continental, Mr. Devashish Neogi, MD of Renault Nissan Technology and Business Center India, Mr. Kishore Patel, co-founder and MD of KPIT, and Mr. K.S. Vishwanathan, Vice President, Industry Initiatives at NASSCOM. Gentlemen and ladies, thank you very much for your time on this lovely afternoon today. So, it's a
Thank you for having
very
us.
interesting theme on, revolutionizing the mobility space with connectivity. And I think now with the advent of 5G, we are seeing or we are going to see a lot of transformations in the overall space. So I would want to start this conversation off by getting a broad perspective from each one of you about, how we are seeing changes right now in the automotive industry. When you talk about the foray of connectivity technologies, already in the last few years, especially around COVID, we've seen a lot of activity on digitalization and a lot of changes in the buyer aspirations and the buyer perception as well. People are liking more and more of these connected solutions in their cars. So, if we talk about our mobility ecosystem right now, what sort of different changes and trends are we expecting going forward? Ms. Lata, I'll just, want you to begin with that. If you can just take that and start off for us, please.
Yeah. Thank you for that question, and yeah, happy to be here. Just a couple of points from my side. If you look at what is dominating the automotive industry at this point of time, there are five main trends that we are talking about, which is EXE, which is electrified, automated, shared, connected, and yearly updated. I think these are the five things which are, predominantly driving the entire innovation in the industry as well. And hyperconnectivity is in our future. It is affecting all industries, but I think it is very prominent in the automotive industry now. And from the way cars are made and marketed to the way they are driven, maintained, every part of the automotive industry now requires, and it generates more data in response to higher customer expectations, especially related to convenience and safety. And what you see as a trend from the user side is if you ask most of the people who are buying car, so earlier I think our generation used to tell what is the price, what is the mileage. I think from there we have changed, and people are looking at safety is a very important feature. Then the joy of use as well as the ease of use. So I think that's the kind of shift which is happening. And if this shift is happening, it is very clear that these technologies like IoT, data, and artificial intelligence, and even if you look at augmented and virtual reality, all these things are going to play a very important thing, and that actually is the game changer of the industry at this point of time. And if you look at topics even like, in the digital technology, we also see trends like digital retailing. For example, OEMs and businesses working in and around, um, different type of compliance. The second thing is the contextual data. That is, there is a need for a location-based knowledge for shared highlights to highlight and I would say identify the areas of safety as well as for ease of use. And the last one is probably in mobility is also the last mile deliveries which are happening, which is also a rising demand, which is coming up from different quarters. So these are some of the first things which I can think of what is changing the industry. But obviously a lot more to it. It's a much larger topic to be discussed down there.
Absolutely. And I'll take that to Mr. Patil. Mr. Patil, KPIT, is doing a lot of work in terms of software for these, the future vehicles. And the area in itself is called software defined vehicles. So, if you can explain to us, the application of these things going forward, what exactly are we going to see in terms of, revolutionizing features in products in the coming future?
Sure. So let me give a broad context to it. And I think Lata did mention some of this, but let me just start and give a higher context to this specific change which is happening. So if you look at the software-defined vehicle, what is the main driver for this? The main driver for this is the change of the business model. So from selling cars at a point of sale, basically OEMs are trying to sell features, they are trying to sell keep on updating the cars ongoing basis. And it is not at the point of sale of the car, but for all the cars which are on the road. That is a point number one. And beyond that, basically, they want to keep connected and keep ideally provide services and content to the occupants. And that's the change of the business model they want to do. And naturally, we all know a couple of companies who started it selling features, etc. And then the industry is taken from that and they're trying to follow it. So the whole concept about the SDV or software-defined vehicle or the new architecture, which is centralized architecture, what Lata mentioned, or some other thing, is basically to provide this, they provide this opportunity for the OEMs to really change their business model. And till that time, typically, if you look at it, the connectivity within the car was more inside the car, and outside the car was less looked at. But because you are going to be connected with every car on the road, so OEMs have to, they can update the car with the features. They can sell, they can update, they can provide data, they can provide services. So all those that really figure out and bring the connectivity at a central point. That is first point. The second point, I would say more and more the world is looking at the personalization, right? So even the product is like this, but people want to have the personalization. So a lot of OEMs and the companies want to see what is their experience in the car and outside the car, and whether they can maintain that same experience. That's why you see the voice engines coming in the car. They can a lot of other things, and that's why you see more. I mean, if you look at it, what either Google, Amazon, or to that extent Apple intend to play is on the personalization. Because what is your life outside the car, whether you can bring it inside the car, and that again starts bringing a lot of the. And then what it means is it understand every player more, in the sense every occupant of the car, it understands it more and try to give the services, the content and ability as close to and the experience as close to as he's used to. So that is the second part. Something which is yet not really as much, if I have to say, there still, while everybody talks about autonomous, but still there is a way to go. And as people really want to go to the advanced level of autonomous, from just level 2 or 3, as they want to go to level 4 or later, and specifically whether you're looking at in the fleets or you're looking at, as Lata mentioned, about the last mile kind of applications, I think that's when the connectivity will become extremely important. And I think from all this point of view, I think this is how the business is moving. This is how automakers are making, and that's why the connectivity has become a very critical part of the game.
Right. And coming to you, Mr. Devashish, so, like Mr. Patil just mentioned, these are the key points, which are, driving this need for connectivity right now. But you as an OEM, what are the key drivers, that are pushing you to innovate more and more on this connectivity front?
First of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity on this very, very interesting topic affecting all of us, and it's top of the mind of most of us in the industry. I would say I just take forward the arguments from Lata and Kishore. Basically, as a OEM, as my colleague said, we are no longer in the business of only producing cars and servicing cars. We are also looking at services as a revenue stream. So how we can give more and more services to the car, and as Mr. Kishore rightly said, that we need to have the e-architecture to support this, like on-demand services which the customer will ask, but also the infrastructure in terms of connectivity, where India is moving towards 5G, which will enable more services to be offered. So this is one area which we will grow. as many predict that around 30%, 20 to 30% of the revenue of a typical OEM will come from providing services. So clearly, this is key. Number two, I would say that more and more companies are looking towards ESG, environmental social goals, right? And we as responsible OEMs would also like to contribute to the planet, contribute to the well-being. And that is where I think the connectivity plays an important role, because we are not only connected to our own servers in the cloud, but I see that we will be connected to the infrastructure network of the city in a typical smart city concept to reduce the congestion on the roads or to optimize the carbon footprint, because if you optimize the flow of the traffic, you are also able to save a lot of carbon, right? So I think there will be more collaborative approach between OEM and the various agencies taking benefit of this connectivity. And I'm sure that not only we will be connected to our own network, but also to the networks of various agencies, whether it will be a company providing plugs for the electric cars, because we want to find the most optimized route to see that I'm having the necessary charging in order to travel long distances. Or it could be also working with the city authorities to see how the navigation, the navigation can be more up to date. I can imagine that the car, a particular car can capture from the radar or from the camera more up to date road data, and a very high speed 5G network, it could update the current navigation profiles so that it could alert the other car who is behind you in a very dynamic mode. So I see a lot of avenues will open. And as Lata rightly said, it's related to the safety of the people, also how to reduce the carbon footprint and help in our implementation of smart cities. And also from a purely OEM point of view, I would say how we can have more revenue generating streams to contribute to more services, and also personalization of the customer experience. I would like to add that with so much of huge data getting generated, we are able to understand the customer much better. And also this will help us to give an even better products, which are very close to the customer needs, but also to create new customer segments and new features in the car, right? So I think the data is a great advantage for OEMs to have even better products and getting close to the customers. At the enterprise level, I would say when we say connectivity outside, it's connectivity inside. So I am seeing a big revolution which can happen the way we develop our products, because it's not only Industry 4.0 for the manufacturing units, but also the entire product development cycle could be more efficient, more competitive. Things like digital twins, which could really accelerate and shorten the development lead time of our processes, so that we can make products faster, in more efficient way and in more competitive way. And I could see that across the enterprise, right from development to sales, we could imagine some sort of a digital twin concept cutting across the enterprise with one data reference in a very dynamic way. So I think the concept of 5G and the cloud will really help OEMs to be even more efficient and competitive. So I'm looking at the network of car to the outer world, but also the networking inside the company to make more efficient products, more closer to the customers' needs.
Right. Well, very well explained, Mr. Devashish. And yes, Ms. Lata. Yeah.
I just wanted to add one more point here. I mean, taking some cue from what Debashish told. Yeah, I think whether we look it from a supplier perspective or from an OEM perspective, I think what we are trying to do is kind of expand the horizon. I think we were talking about vehicles now, and I think then we talked about mobility as a service with many elements getting added. And now we are getting into a superset with smart cities, which is called as lifestyle as a service. So I think it is encompassing more and which is generating more business opportunities for, I mean, every single party, just wanted to add that point.
Correct. You're absolutely right. I mean, there's more business opportunity for every stakeholder, not just an OEM or a supplier, but, the entire, like you rightly mentioned, lifestyle is a service. So I think when we take that into the picture, I think then we are looking at the broader picture in a sense, and we are targeting sustainability also, in a very much more better way. Mr. Devashish, just before I move to Mr. Vishwanathan, you mentioned that about 20 to 30% of revenues you're expecting from these, services going forward. Could you give us a sort of a timeline around when do we expect that to happen for OEMs and for the suppliers in the automobile industry?
I would say by 2030, this is where the matured markets are aiming for 20 to 30%, but it all depends on the upgradation of the products to make it happen. As my colleague Kishore said, that our e-architecture has to be also up to date with the centralized architecture system to be even more efficient to provide those services, and also the infra outside the car. So for India, I would say that it will take a longer time, but will not be far behind our counterparts in US and Europe. So I would say 2030 in Europe, but India will follow sooner. And I think our asset lies in a lot of talent in terms of digital skills, software development skills. So I think we are just constrained, not constrained, but I would say our limit to execute it is basically the infra side. But if you talk of skills, competencies, and domain knowledge, in fact, the people outside India are depending on us to execute these services on the car. So I think if we move fast on 5G, which is the case in India, it will as Lata said, cutting across domains, cutting across industry, and we in automotive will be a part of the entire ecosystem, liaising with the state authorities, the insurance companies, the charging infrastructure, the parking infrastructure, and also other service providers in the life cycle of a customer.
Right. And I'll take that to Mr. Vishwanathan. Mr. Vishwanathan, like Mr. Devashish just mentioned, I mean, software skill is one of our, big competency areas. So how do you see India right now leveraging that talent and that power, and, what sort of potential in the future, what more opportunities in the future do you expect India to have when we talk about, software and the whole connectivity space?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, all of you. At a very high level, India is home to what 5.1 million total technology people work. Approximately around 1 million people are working in the engineering R&D ecosystem. I would say out of the 1 million people working in the R&D system, approximately about 600,000 people are working in the non-mechanical side through software and also apps, embedded and electronic side. Close about 600,000 people are there. The demand for this segment is growing at 33%. So obviously the academia is doing what it can do. What we are also now doing with the industry, with several of the leaders present in this call also contributing, are now defining industry-led curriculum, industry-led assessment, industry-led certification to say that this is the kind of competency and skill that is required. For example, all of us have joined together, have created a 33 hours digital engineering certificate curriculum, which is now being worked in the back end to get about 2 units credit with the colleges, so that the people with this the digital engineering certificate are employed at the round 2 of the competency framework for them to take advantage of. Likewise, along with the industry, we at NASSCOM are also building an embedded boot camp to create an embedded system capability, about 450 hours curriculum, 150 hours curriculum. Again, essentially saying the curriculum is being designed by the subject matter experts in the industry. assessment being done by the NASSCOM along with regulatory bodies, and certification given by regulatory bodies, we will augment and supplement this entire program with academia required. And as both Devashish, Kishore, and Lata said, we expect perhaps by 2025, 26, 60 to 70% of the automobile will be completely software defined. Software defined. And the software defined is going to be completely augmentative and accelerating than currently what is going on. Even if currently the industry, the automobile industry itself, with both service providers and the Global Capability Center, employs close to 125,000 people. The demand is 275,000 people. Where is it 150,000 people more going to come? It is the industry working together. This is the direction that we are working together to make it happen. Perhaps India will be the only place where you're going to get this kind of talent pool available in scale, in volume, in quality, and in substance the next 5 years, a place where everybody is going to come. So demand is only going to keep rising.
So on that optimistic note, I think it's time to close this conversation. And we had a lovely discussion about, different spanning across different topics on connectivity, on, the change that we are seeing in terms of the customer preferences now, and how in terms of development also, the industry is sort of, fast tracking the development overall, using a lot of simulation technology, digital twins. So really nice talking to every one of you. And thank you so much, Mr. Patil, Ms. Lata, Mr. Devashish, and Mr. Vishwanathan. Thank you very much for your time.